We're going to begin at the beginning. We'll come back to majors. Welcome aboard. I like the difference. Business is a good move. We'll come back to that later. They all are. What the pre-law organization does is it helps you discern whether you want to go to law school. It helps prepare you and equip you by giving you connections. Any first-gen students like me? Okay, connections are what make the world go round. The pre-law organization gives you that. It gives you connections to students like Heather. They share with each other. They share research material. They help each other apply. You get those connections. It brings in speakers on a regular basis so you can find out about the different types of law. They will have prep material for you. Join. But what it does is it helps you discern if you want to go. You go through 4 years at Baylor. Everything I'm going to say is going to cover 4-year graduation because there's no way I can nuance this. I had a student graduate in 2 years from the honors program. I don't know why. They didn't sleep. But everything will cover 4 years, and if you were planning on graduating early, move some stuff around. 4 years. LSAT, admissions prep, 3 years of JD program, the bar exam, and then legal practice. What the pre-law coordinator will do is help you walk through these kind of steps. PowerPoint. Okay, before we begin, there are 2 things I need everyone to get differentiated in their minds. There's the pre-law designation. Come on in, yeah, welcome. No need to be sorry. I love the sound of my voice, so I'd be fine no matter what. There's the pre-law designation, which everyone can have. To have the pre-law designation, if you're interested in law, 0.2%, make sure your advisor has the pre-law designation put on your academics information. It takes them a grand total of 0.1 seconds to do this. Also, 75% of stats are made up on the spot. But it takes no time, it's no real commitment, but what it does is it puts you on the pre-law society, pre-law organization's radar. They will reach out to you when speakers come in. They will talk to you about the program itself. It doesn't require you to go to law school. It doesn't require you to have a particular major. Now there's a couple poli-sci students in here. This will apply directly to you. There are 4 majors that have pre-law major tracks. Poli-sci, philosophy, grade text, good morning, my name. Poli-sci, grade texts, philosophy, and economics. These are specific subsections in the major that you can take if you so choose. I will tell you that they're a little more limiting than the non-pre-law tracks. They have certain classes that are only offered in certain semesters. That's as great as I can be. And if they conflict with something else you want to do, that can be a problem. If that sounds nerve-wracking, let me go ahead and say the pre-law track in those majors has a 0% difference for students getting into law school than the generic track. It's just if you want those specific classes that have a little more to do with law than your generic poli-sci class or grade text class, then you can do that. It will conflict from time to time with like Baylor in DC, or you might not be able to get everything to work. I'll talk about Baylor in DC later. I started off in the honors college, and it's a chance to actually spend a semester on the Hill. So you don't have to be the poli-sci pre-law track. You can be poli-sci. You can be psychology. You can be business. What should you major in? What are the #1 majors for getting into law school? Anyone want to get? History. History is a popular one. Philosophy is a popular one. Poli-sci is a popular one. Do political science students get into law school more than anyone else? Absolutely. So what should you major in? Whatever you're interested in and good at, because your GPA matters. So don't major in poli-sci because you have to and white knuckle it through classes you hate. Because if you love something, you do better in it. If you're good at it, you do even better. And again, I've advised students, I've taught students at Baylor for 7 years, 8 years. Time blurs. And I can tell you, I've had theater students, psych students, business students. I've had a bio student. Don't do that to yourself, unless that's really what makes you super happy. major in whatever you want. There are students who come in and say, my mom's friend told me I have to major in political science. Your mom's friend was being helpful. Your mom's friend is wrong. Major in what you're good at. So that's the difference between pre-law track and designation, and as well as just an encouragement on your major. Heather, for instance, here, who is graduating at the end of the summer and starting at University of Houston Law School, came in pre-med anthropology, fell in love with anthropology, added a forensics minor, and was able to flourish in that. So again, you don't have to stick to a particular major if you find out something else excites you, because it's so much easier to work with a student who's excited than not. So what the pre-law organization does is you have the pre-law coordinator does academic advising. First couple of years, it's a large group. You're invited to hear speakers, practicing lawyers, alumni. So again, you make those connections. They will talk to you about the type of classes you can take. They'll mention minors that can help. But I think most importantly, actually, Heather, would you speak on what the Pre-Law Society does for students?
Yeah, so the Pre-Law Society is a student organization that is open to everybody, whether you have a pre-law designation or not. What it does is it offers a community of fellow like-minded pre-law students, so you can kind of network with them. They also offer a lot of resources, things like LSAT prep at discounted prices. They do LSAT prep workshops. They bring in speakers from both local lawyers and also people from national. I've never seen an international lawyer yet, but with Zoom, there's always the possibility of that. So it's just a great organization that you should definitely be a part of if you're interested in law at all. And it's not a big time commitment. You're not required to go to every single meeting, but it's really helpful. And then I'll say one thing, it's different from stuff like mock trial, model UN, MOAS, all that stuff, because you don't have to try out to get in. It's open to everybody. So it's open to everybody, whereas stuff like mock trial you're interested in, you have to try out for it. So anybody could be in the Pre-Law Society.
And you definitely should. I've said this a couple times already, but connections make the world work. You're going to want to have an internship at a law firm or on the Hill at some point. Make connections to those people through this organization. It's a really good move. Also, I will say, Baylor is, let's be honest, expensive. Prepping for the LSAT can also be expensive. A good prep course can run $1,500 or so. The Pre-Law Society, and Heather's benefited from this, has students who are willing to hand over a lot of their prep material to other people. So again, you make connections that way. It's like the GRE, the SAT, the ACT, all of those standardized tests, so you can get help here. And on top of that, you get help crafting later on. After the large group kind of advising the first couple of years, you get more individualized attention with the pre-law coordinator, who has historically been a JD. Ben Cooper, who was the last person, can practice in the UK and the States. He's an Aussie who dresses like a cowboy. But they can help you craft your statements of purpose. And having a honed, crafted statement of purpose, avoiding filler words, showing skills matters. And to go back to the pre-law organization, it is like the students are like-minded in that they're interested in law. It is a varied group, sociopolitically, ethnically, in terms of what kind of law they want to practice. But it brings those people together to form a community.
When I say like-minded, I mean you're all miserable trying to study for the LSAT, or you're all excited getting ready for the next interview that you have. You're all kind of in the same stages.
And of course, this is coupled with your academic advisor who you'll meet every semester. So that's what it does. I want everyone to know ahead of time, it's a two-tiered program. You come in, and until you hit 24 hours of credit earned at Baylor, you can declare the pre-law designation. If at any point after that, you drop down below a 3.2, you're no longer part of this consideration. It's not to say that you're not important and that they're not going to work with you, but it is, any of you have the cars with the warning sounds when you get near the lanes? That's what it is. It's a warning sound that things need to progress a little bit further. Anyone want to take a guess at what the average GPA is for a first semester law admin. This is the part where you actually hit.
3.4.
Okay. Any other brave souls?
3.5.
Okay. Someone else would say 3.6, and then I'd say almost. It's 3.7. Now that's not every school, but the reason this 3.2 and we have tier 1 and tier 2 is specifically for that. If you drop into tier 2, that's okay as well. I had a student named Juliana who came in pre-med. Turns out pre-med wasn't, bio and chem weren't her jam. They weren't her giftings. She decided to switch because her family are all philosophers. Her dad, her grandfather, her uncle are all philosophers. She decided to switch to what she'd known all her life. She flourished. She went from, I haven't given your last name, this doesn't violate FERPA. She went from a 2.9 to, by the time she graduated, a 3.65. She wasn't able to declare tier 1. She's still in law school. She still destroyed the LSAT. So it's just a warning if you are in tier 2. Once lost, it can't be regained. But if you're in tier 2, you still get access to the pre-law coordinator. You can still be in pre-law organizations. You can still come to everything you want. But it is important enough for us to say you've dropped below where we see normal success. It's all right. Had several students do it. So that's tier 2. I hate PowerPoint. So the mission of the pre-law organization is to help you know before you go. Because what you don't want to do is go to law school to find yourself. I think Baylor's expensive. Law school is both more work and more expensive. So please allow your academic advisor, allow your mentors, your faculty to help you discern this. Because you want to prepare for the right school at the right price that fits you. Law schools are not one size fits all. There's going to always be a lot of pressure on you, just like there was in high school, to pick the good school, right? You want to go to a school that'll help you get ahead. Not every school fits for everyone. Law schools vary. I'll let Heather speak about her experience in a bit. But right price, right type of law. Let's say you want to do adoption law. You're probably not going to go to one of the Ivies. You're probably going to go to a small school in the north of Chicago, because that tier 2 school, 1, far more affordable. 2, is the best school in the U.S. for adoption. So the new director will help you know those kind of information, so they can direct you to where you want to go. Okay, so what do lawyers do? This is the former director's slide. What do lawyers do? Yeah, so there's lots of images in the media, in our imagination of what law is. I don't know what's going on here. I've actually seen this movie, and I don't know what's going on there either. Women can definitely be lawyers, but let's go over here. But what is law? We have images of dusty old tomes. We have trial law going on. We have the sleazy, please don't call Saul. But we have high-end business suits working in business law. We have international law. There used to be a picture of Amal Clooney up there for this. Some people think of lawyers as social workers. They're not. They can help the system, but they're not social workers. Some people think of law as crime fighters. You're going to get into law and you're going to fight crime, not be a vigilante. Although, Pattinson movie was good. But this is kind of a dominant image of law in the U.S. Who's seen A Few Good Men? Okay, some students. Amber, who normally runs this, would be thrilled. She has been lecturing students on not watching A Few Good Men. But Director Cooper used to say, for you who haven't seen it, Tom Cruise is trying a renowned general. He's prosecuting a renowned general for violations of, everything. And he demands the truth. And Jack Nicholson says, you can't handle it. Director Cooper, who has done trial law in multiple places, says if you have one moment in a court with this kind of pathos, you've had a very exciting court career. This is not typically what law is. Law revolves around two things. I actually want some responses. What are the two things most lawyers do most of the time?
Paperwork.
Paperwork? Okay. That combines the two. Read and write. So if you hate reading and you hate writing,
Ready to go?
talk to your academic advisor. Oh, sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I just realized. Professor Moore, I work in the Honors College. I'm addicted to school. I have degrees in history and literature and religion, and I did PhD work out in California in philosophy. That's why I was excited. So I love school, and I have something like 150 or so pre-law students. How many pre-law students are there, do you think? The good news is it's fewer than pre-med students. It's about 3,000. So there's a lot. We have a good ratio of success, but it's reading and writing, and it's a lot of work. So 2 questions they want you to answer is, do you know what law is? Do you want to be one? A lot of people want to be lawyers because they think it'll make them money. Some lawyers make money. The average yearly income for a lawyer is far less than you probably imagine. It's definitely survivable. But if you're thinking I'm going to make $150,000, $200,000 right off the bat, there are 2 or 3 firms in the U.S. that do that. And they work you 24 hours a day for 2 years. And then you've aged 73 years. And then you go slow down. So if you want to sacrifice years of your life, for $100,000, which does sound nice, but really to make sure you know what you're getting into. This is the most important part of what you're going to do here, is you're going to develop the ABA skill set, the American Bar Association skill set. We'll come back to that in a second. Make sure you're interested in enough disciplines, because you can specialize in adoption law or international law or patent law, if that's your jam. If you like minutia, if you've got an engineer's mind and like to argue, patent law may be for you. But do you know what these are? Do you know the different disciplines? Have you spoken to enough people who do it? And significant reading and writing. So do you know those things? This is the ABA skill set. You can get this in any major. I have a student who was a theater student who's now at U of H as well, full scholarship. But he supplemented, so he discerned what he could get there. He could get oral and communication and listening, relationship building. Some of this he built in there, but he added minors, he added programs, specifically in the BIC, so he added those to help develop these. More than a major, this is what translates.
Say real quick, for those of you who don't know, the ABA is the American Bar Association, and those are the skills that they really want people to have for the LSAT and for going to law school.
Yes. And I will say, when we come to the legal reasoning minor, for our philosophy student, you're set. One of the things for the legal reasoning minor is logic, which is built into the major. There's nothing that can help you more with the LSAT outside of a prep course than taking logic. It doesn't have to be here, but you should take it. And this isn't just me saying this is a philosopher. 25% of the LSAT is logic.
25 to 50%, depending on which test you get.
So again, you're not going to go to medical school if you're only interested in anatomy. Medical school is far more than that. You're going to go to biological research and pursue graduate work in bio. So if you're interested in political theory, poli-sci students, let me recommend graduate school, because that's where those kind of things are discussed. But it's an ongoing practice. You don't have to be a lawyer just because you declare the pre-law designation. We had earlier in the summer another student here who was honors BIC, USCOL, philosophy, comp-sci. She started as a theater student, and pre-law. She decided it wasn't for her, but because of the type of education and skills she was getting, she's going to the UK to study philosophy and graduate program. So there are options. You don't have to white knuckle it and slam your head against the wall over and over again. You'll do better enough on your own. You're 18. So again, this is what they do. Pre-law organizational do. It puts you in chances to interview attorneys, to take pre-law events, to actually volunteer to be a pre-law ambassador with the Pre-Law Society. Did any of you come to I2E?
Yes.
Okay. One of the representatives is one of my students named Kennedy Wilday. She did that for years. She's B2B, she got in. So there are opportunities to represent Baylor, to build up your resume, because that's really what you're looking at. GPA matters, LSAT matters. But internship hours, service, those skills, the whole thing is what nails them. So definitely listen to the podcast. You can go to Baylor Pre-Law right now and listen to the podcast. I'm going to give you a heads up. The past pre-law coordinator said you have to listen to the first 3 before you could schedule an appointment. Again, 3,000 students. But he was conscious to do that. And it gives you some of the best information about it. And there are other organizations to join. I'm going to begin at the end with this. There is a class that specifically puts you in contact with the pre-law coordinator. It's STL 1102. There's a grand total of, I think, 60 seats. It's full this semester, but it is taught every semester. It's a 1-hour, 1 day a week class that puts you in any semester face to face. And I said earlier that connections are what makes the world go round. Having the pre-law coordinator know your face, know your story, helps you. This is the type of class where you do research about different types of law, you make presentations, and you get to know the pre-law coordinator. Mention it to your academic advisor for the spring. It will be offered. I've recommended students take it sophomore year because they change. It's offered every semester. There are minors to help. Every major can work. The legal reasoning and analysis minor, if you look, logic counts for it. Did any of you have AP credit in stats? Or accounting or anything? Counts here. But if you look at this list of skills, those are the ABA skills, aren't they? You can get 70% of this just from this minor. The minor can be a little bit scattershot. It has some amazing classes that don't necessarily, when you look at them and take them, you might not think this will help you with law. They have a wonderful Greek and Roman mythology class that Heather's in right now. What that has to do directly with law is beyond me, but great faculty. It's worth doing. This can work. Great texts. Philosophy is a great minor. If you take logic, it's 15 hours. Yeah, lots of good ways to go. History, another good one. Poli-sci. These are academic programs that can help. This is my home. Baylor in Washington is a semester on the Hill. Semester where you're interning day after day, hour after hour, building up your resume. It's definitely worthwhile. This is one of the main reasons I don't recommend those major pre-law tracks, because the general poli-sci, great text, philosophy, and so on are more flexible, and there's zero difference between admission. We've had students work with senators and think tanks and organizations that span the political spectrum. If any of you are interested in international law or human trafficking, I'm always curious. We had a student work with International Justice Mission. They've accepted a grand total of 1 intern ever for that position. So there are opportunities to build out names, get resumes, build up your recommenders. There are the pre-law tracks. They're great, not as flexible. That is my opinion as an academic advisor. Do with it what you want. If those classes sound the most exciting and you don't care about study abroad, oh, by the way, international studies majors, Baylor in DC counts as a trip abroad. Don't try to figure out the linguistic gymnastics to make that work, but it counts. And you have to go abroad with international studies. There are portions of the Honors College specifically designed to help with these skills. The Honors Program aims at writing a thesis. So research and writing, a huge part of the ABA skill set. You can walk away having written something that you can put in someone's hands. I mentioned that psychology student earlier, 3 years, honors big, psych, religion, something else in there, pre-law. She wrote one on educational outcomes with and without mentor models on Native American reservations, because her family is Native American. So she got to show independent original research. It can definitely help. The Honors College, every part of the Honors College, the BIC, the Honors College, Honors Program, and university scholars all have classes typically capped at 19 students. So the first, I'll come to your first year in a second, but you build relationships with faculty. When I write letters of recommendation for my students, I can name the papers they wrote for me. I can name the maturation and the growth. I can tell you, if I had written Heather one, I could talk about who Heather was coming in as a pre-med student and the transition and how much she's flourished once she knew what she wanted to do. So I can talk about this person. The Honors College gives you that. University Scholars is a little bit more of a free-form program for high achievers. You select concentrations. The Honors Program and U-Scholar full for the fall, but they are accepting applications for the spring. So if you get a 370 you want to apply, by all means. The VIC is still accepting applications. It is a cohort model, so you start with 150 to 200 students, and you work with them for your first 2 years. And it's interdisciplinary, so for instance, you might enjoy this. Forgive me, everyone else. For instance, you'll learn things like, many of you know the name Rene Descartes. He said, traditionally it's translated, I think, therefore I am. I doubt, therefore I am. But you learn, for instance, that Descartes' philosophy was a response to the wars of religion. He believed that religion was debatable, as was evident by the wars. So he wanted to come up with a philosophical way to assure knowledge. So his philosophical system is tied up in religion and politics. And simultaneously, he's reconfiguring these things. And also, he's wanting new science is burgeoning. So he reconfigures what it means to talk about God as well. So all of this is tied together. You cover those things, you develop, instead of comp and lit, you take rhetoric. So you learn to find logical fallacies, modes of argumentation, pull apart and put together arguments. They can work. For our business students, if you really have a ton of interests, I'm going to pick on you. Let's say you want to do business, but you're also really interested in anthropology and sociology. It reduces the core and allows you more flexibility to do those things. I had one BBF student who, BBF, honors, Vic. I work with nerds. These are my people. They make me happy. But BBF, Vic, honors anthropology and religion. He did a dig in Iceland. He wrote, because he could. Any of you Stranger Things fans at all? Okay, right now they're dealing with the 80s satanic panic, where everyone was afraid Satan was leading everyone to hell. He wrote his multidisciplinary thesis on the sociology behind it, what was leading to those things, because it was what he loves. I'll also let you know he's kickstarted a couple board games. So these are the students I get to work with. I love my job. But BBF is a little more flexible. Now is the time where I say what you need to do your first semester and your first year is not worry about becoming a lawyer, because you can't do it your first semester and your first year. Don't put that pressure on you. What you need to do your first semester is study. Get to know your faculty for letters of recommendation, for guidance, for building out your resume. Let's say you've got Dr. David Corey, who heads up the Baylor and DC trip, and he's talking to you about this one bit of his research that he's working on right now, and you're like, that's really cool. And you get to know him. Like, I know you know Henry Wright, and work really well, a lawyer who teaches in my program. You babysit for them, so letters of recommendation. But if Dr. Corey's working on this thing that's really exciting, and you say, do you need a student worker? And then you have a byline on a graduate application. So there's ways to do this. Get to know your faculty. They can look scary. They can be scary in appearance. They could sometimes just look like they crawled out of bed and haven't had enough coffee. But undergraduate research opportunities are huge. We've covered some of this. There are upper-level internships for credit. If you're doing MOAS, Model Organization of American States, or Model UN, you can get credit for those. You can get to try out. But tons of ways to build out what you're doing. Devoted internships. Career Center I mentioned earlier is Amber Thompson, who is the contact person during the summer. She's amazing. There are people in her office who are there specifically to help you find internships. So use those connections again. Mentors, faculty, or pre-law coordinator. These are other ways you can help. Definitely join a pre-law society. There will be an event your first week called Late Night. Every organization on campus will tell you why you should give them your time. And if you can think of an organization, I promise you we've got it. There's a group that plays board games. That's their whole thing. There's a unicycle club. I know that because my student started it and asked me to be their sponsor. That's not my jam. But the Pre-Law Society is one you can join. Resist joining everything your first semester. These organizations need help. I'm going to say, moment of confession, I was a Greek in college. I was a member of a fraternity. I don't know if I'd do it again, but I can say this as someone who ran the Members Awaiting Initiation program. If you're a worker, they will utilize your work. Every organization will do that. So protect your time. As uncool as this is, how many times have you heard the phrase Baylor experience today? If I was to give you all $10 per time, I don't make that much money. How much money would I give you?
A lot.
A lot. So you're going to hear Baylor experience a lot, and that's great, but you're here to go to school. You're here to do a bunch of other things, but you're here to go to school. So join organizations, but make sure you've got time to do it. Unless you just don't want to sleep for 4 years. I don't recommend that. Mock trial, so again, developing skills. Let's say you don't want to do poli-sci. Let's say you are a theater student. Or let's say you are a bio student and you know you're not going to do the other stuff. Mock trial, if you try out for it, we have a nationally ranked competitive team. You get to work on your deliberative skills, your public speaking skills. It is not for everybody. All law is not trial law. If this isn't exciting to you, perhaps you're interested in international law. Model UN, Model Organization of American States are both classes. If you're an international studies major, they count towards your major. But again, you don't have to do any of these. Just make sure you're getting the skills somehow, somewhere. Repeat. Definitely work hard. This is the least cool thing I'll ever say. Your schedule should be your best friend your first semester. Build it out. Schedule free time. Don't go about willy-nilly. Schedule free time. I'm a human being made mostly of chaos. I could not do this job if it wasn't for my stupid Outlook calendar. I hate it, but it's how I do the job. If you schedule free time, if you schedule this is when I'm going to be in class, this is when I'm going to be free, this is when I'm going to study, you will do better. Listen to the podcast. All of this is but benefit. Okay, and the goal is a legal career. This is what law school looks like. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4 cups of coffee and a Coke. But it can be rewarding. Now let's come to the LSAT. How many of you took, I love this yesterday by the way, how many of you took the ACT or the SAT 8th grade? Okay, why don't most people do that?
They won't do very well.
They won't do very well. I mean, some of you do, but you don't need it then and there. A lot of students push in and try to take the LSAT right off the bat. You don't have the skills developed typically to do well, and it can give you false positives. Let's say you have a really lucky day and you get a great score your freshman year. What does that lead you to believe about the next time you take it? Any of you know really good athletes that never amounted to what they should because they started off strong and then coasted? Yeah, don't do that. So the recommendation of the pre-law office and the pre-law coordinator when he was here was don't take the LSAT, don't worry about the LSAT until the end of your sophomore year. Take it cold, and that gives you the best possible read of what skills you've developed and what you need to work on. You're of course building up your skills for this in your formal reasoning class and your other classes. You can do, if you want to dabble your toes in early work, you can, but the office tends to say at the end of your second year. You're going to average about 15 hours a semester until your 6th semester. Ideally, we want you to get 12 to 13 that semester so you can spend more time prepping. Don't avoid 15-hour schedules because you don't want to signal to graduate programs that you're trying to avoid heavy loads, because you do not get to avoid heavy loads in graduate school. My first PhD seminar, I had a 7-page single-space paper due every week and a 24-page single-space paper due at the end of the semester. Philosophy, y'all. Not for everybody. But it makes me happy. So what you do is you spend your time developing. Good news, the Pre-Law Society does not only offer helpful students, but it offers discounts on prep material. Yeah, and honestly, what you do your 6th semester is you treat the LSAT like a class. You set aside an hour and a half or an hour 3 days a week, and you set aside study time every week. Treat it like a class. If you're going to write a thesis, treat your thesis like a class. Students who don't and try to cram, you've seen the research on cramming for tests, right? Bad. Learn from my mistakes. But the Pre-Law organization will take care of you. These are some standard numbers for some really big programs. Some of them are really impressive, some of them aren't. 3.7 is what you're looking for on the average, but you see the variety there. I don't care where my students go to law school. I do care that they make wise decisions. Some student debt isn't the end of the world if you're willing to live wisely. The world has changed. But you don't have to go to these schools. Heather, would you speak on your experience?
So I will not say the name of them, but I did visit 2 of the schools up on that list, and I interviewed there, and everything was going well. And after experiencing the atmosphere, I came back home and withdrew from those 2 schools. I think it's really easy to get clouded by the idea of what other people want you to do. And, you know, not everybody is built for every school, not every atmosphere is right for everybody, especially if you're looking at these schools. A lot of them want you to be like a politician. They want you to go out there and change the world. And if that's not what you want to do, don't go to a school that specializes in doing that. Baylor Pre-Law definitely doesn't force you into any one specific kind of route.
And again, choose the program that you want to go to. I'm sure all of you visited a couple schools before deciding on Baylor, and this one felt like the best fit. Do the same. The best bit of advice I can give you in terms of law school is if you can visit them early, visit our law school. Just go meet the admissions people. They'll try to convince you to go to Baylor, but they will also give you an inside clue, inside tip. The average age for a first semester law student is 27. So you're going to hear the pre-law coordinator say gap year frequently. What parents? What that doesn't mean is the pre-law coordinator is not telling your kids to go backpacking across Europe. Although if you can swing that financially, I take donations. I haven't gone on vacation in a long time. They're not telling you kids to go home and hang out with your parents for a year. Because you don't want to do that. Parents, they're not telling you you have to have your kids hang out at home for a year, because kids, they don't want that. They love you, but they want to love you in shorter amounts of more concentrated time. And they're really excited about when you have kids, they will forget you. Just know that. My sister doesn't exist anymore. It's just my niece. But one of the reasons they talk about gap years, the logic's straightforward. Why did you come to college? You boil it down, you came to college because it's the next thing, right? Why do most students apply to law school? Because it's the next thing. Grad school students apply to grad schools invest money in them, they leave quickly. So there's a preference for people who have more experience. Let's say you get a job in the business world. Remind me the type of business? Marketing. So let's say you're marketing for 3 years after you graduate. You're making $75,000, $100,000 a year. And you walk away from that to apply to law school. What does that say to the law school about your level of commitment? Oh, if you just walked away from $100,000? Doesn't that say that you really want to do it? That you're willing to sacrifice that money? So that's the reason, and there are different ways to do it. Gap year does not mean go hang out. It means get a job. Get a job where you can develop these skills, whether it be a teacher. I had one of my students who, when she graduated, taught debate and rhetoric at a classic school. And then she impressed the bejesus out of the University of Chicago. She got in. Get a job in the business world. Get a job on the Hill. All of these things make you a more overall appealing applicant. As an academic advisor, I'll add this. This isn't a pre-law bit, but as an academic advisor, I tell my students this. If you've got the scores, GPA and LSAT, at the end of your 4 years, there's no reason why you shouldn't apply. It doesn't hurt you. I'm not worried about Baylor's national reputation. I'm worried worried about it. I have the privilege of doing that. The young woman I mentioned, Juliana, she graduated a semester early. She was testing in the top 2% on her LSATs. And someone was telling her, you should take a gap year. Very powerful young woman. She said, no, why? Well, it'll help you. She's like, but my scores are amazing. And I've got letters of recommendation. And my advice to her was apply. If you can't afford to do it, don't. But that is the reason you will hear it. So parents, if your kids say, oh, pre-law coordinator talked to me about a gap year, these definitely, or she is definitely not trying to get you to have a stay-at-home. Make sense? All right, I am done. This is the point where, oh, I'm not going to say it. Any questions, any concerns? Heather's here to answer questions. I can answer questions. If not, this is the part where Amber says, I know I stand between you and lunch, so. Yeah.
No.
How beneficial and worth it would it be to get, like, say, a double major, philosophy and great text?
If you enjoy those things, great. Because again, you're going to have relatively, philosophy is a smaller major, great text is a smaller major. Great text puts you in the honors college. You can definitely do it. You're going to get some strong overlap between material, and you're going to be reading Augustine, Aquinas, and Plato, and Aristotle, no matter what. They just hired an amazing new faculty member in great text. I'm really excited about her work. But yeah, it's going to be very good. If you like it, if you've got the time, absolutely. Whether you're in the BIC or you're doing the general core, you're in a different college, there is room for minors. There are rooms for double majors. We just had a student graduate in 4 years who was double major, double minor, honors, BIC. She's in Italy digging in the dirt right now. Baylor owns the rights to an Etruscan burial site 50 miles north of Rome. Wow. And that's where she is right now. So if you can make that work, awesome. But don't think you have to do multiple majors or minors to impress schools. You can, and they can. But it's all, Aristotle says that the person who has practical reasoning has every other virtue in the world. So make the right decision at the right time, in the right way, for the right end. All right, y'all, it's noon. I'll be here for a bit. Heather will be here for a bit. I wish you all incredible luck.